The room was buzzing with soft conversation, the kind that filled chess clubs on slow afternoons. Pieces clicked lightly against wooden boards as players leaned forward in deep concentration. But everything shifted the moment Clara walked in. Quiet, gentle, almost invisible. She came every week just to watch, never to play. That was enough for Victor. Victor, the club's undefeated Grandmaster, loved an audience almost as much as he loved winning. When he saw Clara standing near the back, hands folded nervously, he smirked and waved her over. "Care for a friendly match?" he asked loudly enough for everyone to hear. The room quieted. Players glanced up, whispering. Victor never played beginners. He devoured them. Clara blinked, unsure. "I don't really play. I just watch." "That's perfect," he said, pulling out the chair with exaggerated politeness. "Come, let's see what you've learned." A couple of players chuckled under their breath. Someone whispered, "This'll be quick." Clara heard them, but she simply nodded and sat down. Her movements were small, almost delicate. Victor made a big show of stretching his fingers, as if preparing for some grand performance. "Ladies first," he said. Clara took a quiet breath, reached out with steady fingers, and made her first move. The room erupted in murmurs. Her opening wasn't random, panicked, or sloppy. It was deliberate, sharp, and shockingly precise. Victor's grin faltered. He sat up straighter. "Interesting choice," he muttered. Clara didn't respond. She just watched the board, calm as a still pond. Victor played his counter move, confident, controlled. Clara responded again and again, each move unfolding like a quiet storm. It wasn't aggressive, but it was elegant, strategic, the kind of play that forced respect. People began gathering around the table. The joking smiles faded. Whispers shifted into stunned silence. Victor tapped his fingers against the table, studying the board with a seriousness nobody had seen from him in years. "Where did you learn this?" he asked. Clara shrugged mildly. "I've always liked patterns." Victor looked up at her, surprised by the simplicity of her answer. He moved a rook forward, confident it would put pressure on her left flank. Clara responded instantly, almost before his fingers left the piece, sliding her knight into a position that turned his entire setup upside down. Victor froze. Someone behind him whispered, "Is she winning?" Clara's eyes stayed on the board. Her voice barely above a whisper, she said, "It's not about winning. It's about seeing what's possible." Victor swallowed hard and leaned closer, analyzing her formation. Something was happening, something he hadn't expected. Piece by piece, his strategy was unraveling, and Clara wasn't even breaking a sweat. He moved again, slower this time. Clara looked at the board for only a moment, then reached forward, fingers landing softly on a single piece. As soon as she lifted it, the crowd gasped, the air tightening like a drawn bowstring. Victor stared at the board, his face slowly draining of color. Her move wasn't just clever, it was devastating. A tactical trap he hadn't seen coming. It was then he realized this quiet woman wasn't just playing chess. She was teaching him something. Victor cleared his throat, suddenly aware of the crowd leaning in. "Well," he said quietly, "that changes things." Clara looked up with a gentle, almost apologetic smile. "Your turn." He stared at the board, mind racing, the weight of the moment settling heavily on his shoulders. Every eye in the room was on him. The Grandmaster who never lost. The beginner who wasn't really a beginner at all. Victor carefully reached for a piece. But before he could make his next move, something unexpected happened that shifted the entire match yet again. And Clara's calm expression hinted she already knew exactly how the next few moments would unfold. Victor's fingers hovered over the piece, but he didn't touch it. His eyes narrowed, scanning every square, every line Clara had quietly woven into a trap. He was thinking so hard the room felt it, a heavy silence replacing every whisper. Then, just as he was about to place his rook, Clara softly said, "If you move that, the game ends in 3 turns." Victor froze mid-movement. The room stiffened. No one dared to breathe. He slowly withdrew his hand. "Show me," he said, trying to sound casual, but the tension in his voice betrayed him. Clara looked uncertain. "Only if you want me to." I do, he replied, more intensely than he intended. She nodded and gently tapped 3 squares in sequence, not touching any pieces, just pointing. Victor followed the invisible line. She traced through the board, and his jaw tightened. She was right. That simple rook move, which any Grandmaster would normally trust, would have been a disaster. His heart thudded once, heavily. The crowd exchanged looks. No one had ever seen Victor hesitate like this. Trying to regain control, he let out a short breath. "All right," he muttered. "Let's try something else." He moved a different piece, cautiously this time. Clara's response was immediate, like she had been waiting for exactly that. Her bishop slid across the board, landing with a soft click that sent a ripple through the onlookers. Victor inhaled sharply. She had found the only move that countered his setup and turned the board in her favor again. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a fluke. This was mastery. He stared at her with a mixture of frustration and awe. "You're not just a casual watcher," he said quietly. Clara shook her head. "My grandfather taught me when I was little. He used to say chess is like listening. If you're quiet enough, the board tells you what to do." Victor swallowed. "Your grandfather must have been extraordinary." "He wasn't famous," she replied softly. "He just cared." The simplicity of her answer struck him harder than any move on the board. Before he could respond, Clara lifted another piece, almost absently, and placed it in a position so elegant, so devastating, that the entire room collectively gasped again. Victor leaned forward, gripping the table. "Wait! No, that can't be." But it was. A quiet player behind him whispered, "That's a Grandmaster-level trap." Victor exhaled slowly, realizing what she had built. A subtle, perfectly constructed net around his king. He still had moves left, but every path narrowed into danger. Clara looked at him with gentle patience, as if she didn't want to embarrass him. "You can still escape," she said kindly. Victor met her eyes. "Can I?" Clara studied the board for a long moment, then nodded. "Yes, but only if you're willing to sacrifice something you don't want to lose." He frowned, unsure what she meant, until he saw it. His queen. The realization hit him like a punch. Sacrificing the most powerful piece, just to survive the next 4 moves. The room silently waited for his decision, breath held, bodies leaning in, hearts pounding. And Victor, the Grandmaster who never hesitated, found himself stuck between pride and possibility. At last, he reached out slowly, painfully, toward the queen. But before he touched it, Clara whispered something so unexpected, so quietly shocking, that even the crowd closest aboard gasped and stepped back. Her words changed everything, and shifted the match into a direction no one saw coming.